Hey everybody. Today I found myself a little bit of a breadcrumb, and this breadcrumb applies probably much more personally to me than it would to you guys, but I thought I'd share it with you anyhow. Before I had known about the Mandela effect, I had spent at least 6 months kind of hardcore researching the Fukushima incident, the nuclear industry, and the science behind nuclear chain reactions, which is pretty intense. I got onto this thanks to the work done by Dana, kind of nicknamed the nuclear proctologist. And during those months and times previous, he had gone on expeditions basically documenting the coastline of British Columbia and documenting the life and any effect that the plumes of radiation had on it, which was actually pretty severe, but I won't get into that right now. If you've seen some of my other videos, one of the things I pointed out was about Vancouver Island being much closer and to the mainland, to the coastline, and the coastline being broke up now. The coastline being broke up along the west coast of British Columbia and what's part of the Alaska region. You can see here, from my memory, this was not broke up this far. The region here I want to focus in on, which relates to the breadcrumb I picked up on, is this chunk of island and land in the ocean, which, as you can see, should be very noticeable, memorable, because it's very, kind of sticks out right after Vancouver Island. There's this other big old island up here, which I pretty much can assure you was not there before. What this was, give me a moment here, see if I can show you. From the way my memory remembers it, and just very basically, the Alaska border never cut in as far into BC as it does now. Like, it used to come down pretty evenly, but now it jots eastward. And basically this is necessary because so much of the land's broke up into islands. So in order to have a border that's actually takes up some real land and includes the actual coastline, now it comes in further, for what it seems to me anyhow. So the way I remember it, for the most part, it just came down generally the same from the top all the way down, and then maybe once you get to about this region it would have cut out, and it would have included the coastline and some other islands, but relatively just small islands, not these big chunks of land you see now. And this chunk of land, which as a whole at this point in time is called the Queen Charlotte Islands, it would have been, basically this northern coast of it would have been attached to that mainland. And it would have came down as a point or peninsula coming down southward. And hopefully you guys can kind of imagine that to some degree. So what we have now currently, as far as what the names and titles are given, is, as I mentioned, this entire chunk is called the Queen Charlotte Islands. And as you get in a little farther, the northern region of this is called Graham Island, and the southern region is called Moresby Island, which actually there's a bunch of other islands off of Moresby. And as I mentioned, the entirety of it all is considered the Queen Charlotte Islands. So, as I was mentioning, the way I remember it is that this was actually attached to the mainland, which means the only islands was the southern part of it. Basically the southern half would have been more or less the island chain that came down off that peninsula. In the not my actual breadcrumb, but as a little bit more of a hint in that direction, I found the agreement between the Government of Canada and the Native people that make claim to that region. Of course, the government, this document's about turning it into parks and a reservation, a natural reservation, which basically they just say, yeah, in 1988 we said it was ours and it's still ours, so we're just going to go ahead and turn it into a park, please sign here, and they did. Anyhow, they have 2 maps included. This one, which doesn't include the entirety of what's called the Queen Charlotte Islands now, it cuts off early at the top. It's titled as Moresby Island, and even though they have over on the right here Queen Charlotte Islands, which is kind of more or less how I remember it. The bottom chain was the Queen Charlotte Islands, not the entirety of it, because the entirety of it actually, the whole upper half connected to the mainland. It's a little bit of a clue there. Not a lot to go on. Interesting in similar case, the native people called this region, I'm not even too sure how to pronounce it, but I'll just call it the Hannes region. So they have that as this region, which again, it doesn't include the whole Queen Charlotte Island area as it's called now. It only includes the bottom half, which is kind of odd. Why didn't they call the whole region this, right? The whole island this? Because it wasn't a whole island before, is my reason. It was only the lower string of islands. So the breadcrumb I had found was a video done in 2015, June 8th, 2015, by Dana. His YouTube showing here, Beautiful Girl by Dana. And keep in mind, I don't speak for Dana. You know, I have no real connection to him. Besides, I definitely do support him. He does a lot of good work and has done a lot of hard work, pretty much given his life for his cause and to point out the nuclear issues, nuclear pollution and whatnot issues. So at the beginning of this video of his from 2015 called Underwater Combo Lake Louise Narrows, he starts out in the very beginning of the video stating, what makes up this unique place for marine life was the fact that the ocean meets a pinch point and has to funnel through here. And when I read this, because I was going through looking for some old maps that he might have done, because he used to mark out all the places he took pictures and videos, and I don't remember the BC Vancouver Island being right on the coast, and he had kind of totally separate, and now it's all changed. I'm not going to be questioning him about this. He still has, you know, everything's just sort of realities is molded to suit the situation, so it's kind of funky now. But I remember him explaining this, and when I read this, I was like, I totally remember that. And what it is, of course, is when this used to be attached to the mainland, and the point came down, the ocean would, when the tide rises, it would go in and basically create a pinch point. And now the Louise Narrows, when you search it, which even if you totally Google it, Google Earth it, it doesn't come up. I found it on Map Charta. So this is Map Charta that labeled it on Google Maps, or Google Earth. And as you can see here, they're Louise Narrows, which is the Louise Narrows now anyhow. Probably kind of partially is what it was before as well, in some manner or another. Let's see if this here loads up, it's a little slow. But basically it's right in the middle of those Queen Charlotte Islands area, down on the southern half of it. The reason why the statement doesn't really hold true anymore is the water, I wish this here would load up, piece of junk. The water's still, you know, it's wider out here and it does reach a narrower point. But this is an island. It's not, it doesn't funnel. In order for the tide to funnel, it has to come in one end and go to a dead end. It's not a dead end anymore. It's an island. And as I said, I totally remember him explaining this and looking at the Triangle Peninsula that came down, and of course the ocean would go up and reach a dead end, which was basically rivers and coves and whatever. It was a pinch point. And so as the tide rises, it goes up, it reaches narrower and narrower areas and gets funneled in, and therefore you literally get a rush of the tide rising. And this helps push life up there. A lot of food, makes it very good spot for life. Anyway, sorry about this map, guys. It's being a complete piece of junk to me. So the Louise Narrows, I should be able to point it out here, even though it's not totally marked on the Google Maps. I know where it is. I think. Yeah, here's Louise Island. So the Louise Narrows, actually this narrow right in here. So originally, long ago, you know, or whatever, previous reality, I'm not too sure if some of this was connected to land on the coast, on the mainland, on the coast side or not. Probably not. As I said, I remember it as a triangle peninsula coming down, and therefore, when the tide went up, the water got funneled and narrowed, and it all would rush in and cause kind of a tidal current. You see this taken advantage of in some places that it creates an extreme tide, so you can actually have water or electricity generation with that because there's a pretty good current that goes in and out. So anyhow, guys, as I said, that's my breadcrumb. It applies a little bit more personally to me as proof because it really helps me remember. But I thought I'd point it out to you. Thanks for watching. Next time I'll get you something a little more exciting. Take care.